Alright, everything's stained, sealed, buffed out, the overlays. Now it's time to put on my overlays and put on any hardware I have. If you wanted an accessory pouch or something like that, like on the back, now would be the time to put it on if you actually fold it over, because now you can actually get to the front and the back of it when you stitch it on. So in order to do this, I'm going to basically take the length of just one line and do 3 times that length to give me enough thread to get all the way up and back. That way I know I've got enough, won't run short. And this is wax cord. And we use this basically wax cord needle. It's got an eye in it like a regular needle. And what we're going to do is we're going to thread the needle, pull it through, and then we're actually going to come down here and push the needle through the thread like that. Then we're going to pull that. We're going to pull that down over the thread and then tighten the whole thing up, and that will keep your thread from coming off when you're going through. You now have this little loop here that's going to hold it in place, and just tighten that up. And then to start, we're going to start in our first hole right here, and I'm going to start on the inside of the overlay piece and pull my thread through. I'm going to pull it all the way through till there's about 2 or 3 inches hanging out, just like that. And the reason I'm leaving this here is because we're going to go all the way down and over to here and then come all the way back. And then I'm going to have the other piece of thread at the end and use it to tie it off, and then we'll be able to hide our knot down inside of there. So the way that you do this, you come through that first hole, you just simply go through, and then come up. And just give it a little tug to make sure it's snug, and then down through, and then back up through the bottom. And if you can see that, you can see that there's thread here, no thread here, thread here, no thread here. So we're going to go all the way down, and then when we come back, we're going to actually come back up the opposite direction and come back down, so it's going to finish off the thread. You'll see what that'll all look like when I get done doing this piece.
I'm just leaving it.
Where are we going?
Alright.
Sandy's.
So we've gone
She's just my roommate.
all the way across to here. So now we're going to go down into the last hole. And just go right back over where we were.
It's not even dark yet. Everybody's leaving.
Oh, wow.
Well, you're Professor fucking Nash. Right? You're not going to leave because of my stoner friend. Hang out. Come on, Professor. You see that face?
Come on, Professor.
Let's do this ceremony.
When you're ready.
And you can see that now we got every hole covered thread running through. Alright, so we're almost back to the beginning where we started. Come back through the back. Down. And then if you remember, we started this one from the inside here. So now we're on the back side of that same hole. So what we're going to do, we're going to open it up and bring our thread up through there. So now we have our original thread where we started and our ending thread. And all we're going to do is tie a simple square knot. That's it. Then we'll just clip the strings and the knot will be hidden back in there. And then that's what the finished edge looks like. And again, there's the knot hidden inside there. So there's the top overlay in place. Now we'll put the bottom overlay on. Okay, so we've gone all the way down and back. Here's the string we originally started with. This is the bottom overlay. And we're just going to do the same thing we did on the top. We're going to come through this back hole and just come up so that we have both of our strings there. And again, we're just going to tie a square knot in it. Cut our string. And again, our knot's tucked away in there. So now we have the top and the bottom overlay on our main body here. Alright, now while it's still flat, I want to put my jewelry on. This basically just has a screw on the back, so we're going to punch a hole. And I'm going to make this about 1/3 of the way up, about 2/3 of the way down. I know this is 6.5 inches from here to here, so I'm just going to eyeball it. Probably set it right about there. Punch my hole. This is the arm guard I made for my daughter, and these are the decorative little basically the same thing as that piece of jewelry, just got a screw on the back. And this little flower is exactly the same as this one, only this one's larger. So it'll be a matching set. It'll look kind of nice. So for this hole, I'm going to use my 13/64 punch. And like I said, I'm going to come up about 1/3 of the way, down about 1/3. Just eyeball it. My hammer, put my hole in it. We're just going to take our jewelry, slip it through there. So it sits nice and flush, and it's got an up and a down, so that's going to be my down, my point of reference. So I'll just flip it over, screw it in. There it is. So all we have left before we actually start stitching this thing up is to work on the bottom. Basically what we want to do is we want to make a plug so that when this is closed around like this is going to slip up inside of there. So this is a diagram I made. This outside perimeter is a little under 10 inches, which is what the length of the bottom of this is. So I got a piece of decking material I had laying around, and I just made basically a little form that I'm going to use to shape this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to soak this, wrap around this, and tape it up. I just took it and cut it to the size I wanted, and then just basically belt sanded it so that it's beveled on the edges and rounded on the tips. Now to shape this, so this piece is going to be like a plug that fits in the bottom. So essentially on mine you can see how it fits in there. I just molded it around and had the 1/2 inch hanging down so that I could lace it right in there. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to cut a couple of notches in that piece, and then we'll soak it and I'll stick it on the mold and we'll let that sucker shape up. So in order to do this, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to cut a slight angle and about 1/2 inch. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So now I've got this little wedge here, so that when it folds around, you can see it'll take up that gap. Do the same thing on the other side. So now it looks like that. I'm going to go soak it, and then what we'll do is this is the side that's going to be facing down, so we're going to essentially, once it's soaking wet, form it around this and then tape it up. So I'm going to go soak this. I'll be right back. Alright, so I just submerged this in water for about 5 minutes and let it soak, so it's nice and soaked through. I'm going to take my piece, set it on there, and then just take some blue painter's tape. Lay that down there. Set my piece kind of right in the center there. Now what I'm going to do is bring this side up and over into place. Keep it nice and tight. Pull this side up and over. So I've got that taped up in the center. Just going to take that shape, and now I'm going to bring this side up and this side up. And basically I'm just going to tape it all the way around. Actually, I can trim that a little more. You see how it's overlapping. See how it's overlapping right there? I'm going to trim off that overlap. We got it kind of like that, and I'll do the same to the other side. There we go. Now we can wrap it up around the outside. And we'll run strip all the way around the outside. Then once that dries up, we can start lacing this up, and then when we get to the bottom we can mark where our holes should be, and then we'll be able to punch the holes for this off of these holes. Alright, got some little nuts and bolts that I like to use to kind of hold everything in place. Just stick them through the holes. This is that back strap piece I was telling you about that's going to reinforce the back lacing that we're going to do, so we'll be lacing it up the back. Here's our bottom insert that we formed up, got wet, and all I'm going to do with it right now is I'm just going to set it in here. I'm going to mark the back so I know that that's the back of it, and the back will be referring to the lacing. And I'm just going to stick it in here. Like that, and I'm leaving the form in it just to kind of help hold its shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where my lace holes are on it using this pen. So that I'll know where to punch them out at. Alright, pop that out. You can see where the holes are marked. So now I'll just punch those, and again I'll leave the form, and I'll just use my punch and punch right into the form. So now I've got all my holes punched, so that when I get to the point of lacing it, just slip it in and lace it right in. The other thing that I want to pre-punch and get ready before I start lacing it up is my belts. And I marked where this belt's going to attach to the quiver. And the way I did that is I grabbed my daughter, put the belt around her waist so that the belt buckle was in the center of her waist, and then I marked where I'm going to attach the quiver so that her belly button was basically right below the buckle. And I marked the quiver so that it was offset to the left side of her back just a little bit, because we want the quiver to sit at an angle. And when I punch these holes, I'm also going to punch them at a slight angle as well to give the quiver a natural tilt. So to do that, all of our holes are 3/4, so here's the quiver. And if it's sitting on her back, I want it going this way at a slight angle. So I know that my holes should be angled off this way. I'm just going to take my ruler, just kind of eyeball an angle. Draw a couple of lines. And then set my compass to 3/4 of an inch, because I know that my holes are 3/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball the first 2 holes. Going to be right about there. I'm going to come down there and there. So now they're at an angle. Go ahead and punch those holes. And then after I get everything laced up, I'm going to attach this buckle to the front of the belt also at an angle. And I'm going to give it probably about 4 or 5 inches. So go ahead and cut that. So that when this belt is on, this buckle is going to be here, like that. So the strap coming down over the shoulder will buckle to this buckle. But I'm going to attach that later when I have her around